Have you ever gone to your doctor's appointment and when they check your blood pressure, it's high and you're shocked because you're eating plenty of vegetables, cooking most meals at home, not adding salt to anything, and walking every day? Some of you may already be on blood pressure medications too, and you wonder, why is my blood pressure still high? Here's what's important to understand about that. You're not doing anything wrong. You're following the advice you've been given and it's still not working. This means something else is going on that we just haven't addressed yet. I'm Dr. Kabir Harry-Singh, a physician who likes to practice medicine with the approach that I don't like to wait for disease to show up. I look for things that have early signals so we can act before things progress. And today I want to talk to you about something that doesn't come up nearly enough in the conversation about blood pressure. It's not about adding something to your diet or cutting something out. It's about whether your body ever actually gets the chance to reset the hormonal systems that control blood pressure in the first place. Okay, here's a quick disclaimer. Even though I'm a doctor, I'm not your doctor. This is educational information only, not personal medical advice. Always discuss decisions with your own doctor first. The traditional advice around blood pressure is built on the idea that it's mostly a fluid volume problem. Less sodium means less water retention, less fluid in the bloodstream, and therefore lower pressure. And for some people, that works really well. But for others, especially those who are metabolically compromised in ways they may not even be aware of, blood pressure is being driven by something else entirely. It's being driven by hormonal systems that are supposed to rise and fall throughout the day, but are instead staying elevated almost continuously. And no amount of sodium restriction is going to fix that on its own. Most people know insulin regulates blood sugar, and some people know it's connected to weight. But insulin does a lot more than that. Insulin is a pulsatile hormone, meaning it's supposed to spike when you eat, do its job moving glucose into your cells, and then fall back down the baseline. That rise and fall isn't just about blood sugar. It sends signals to other systems throughout your body. When insulin rises, it tells your kidneys to hold on to sodium, keeps your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight system, slightly more activated, and it causes your blood vessels to constrict. All of that is completely normal and healthy when it's happening in response to a meal, and then resolves a few hours later. The problem is when insulin never fully falls. When it stays elevated for 12, 14, even 16 hours a day because something is triggering it that frequently. And here's where modern life works against us. A typical day for a lot of people looks like this. Breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, an afternoon snack, dinner, an evening snack, then maybe something small before bed. Even if every one of those meals is genuinely healthy, you're still triggering insulin release over and over again, and your insulin never gets the chance to fully return to baseline before the next spike happens. That creates a state of chronic, low-grade insulin elevation, not dramatically high, but just high enough to change how your kidneys, your blood vessels, and your nervous system behave around the clock. You might be wondering why we're talking about your kidneys when this video is about blood pressure, right? Well, your kidneys are where blood pressure is ultimately regulated, so let's focus there for a moment. When insulin is elevated, the kidneys receive a signal to retain sodium, and this happens independently of how much sodium you're actually eating. It's actually a very logical mechanism from an evolutionary standpoint. When you eat, your body anticipates it needs to support digestion and nutrient absorption, so holding onto a bit of sodium temporarily makes sense. The problem is that this mechanism was designed for a world where eating was intermittent, where there were long stretches of time between meals and insulin had plenty of time to fall before the next one. In that world, the sodium retention is temporary and self-correcting. But when insulin is elevated continuously, that temporary sodium retention becomes more permanent. The kidneys stay locked in retention mode regardless of how little salt you're consuming. That's why some people can follow a very low sodium diet and still have stubbornly high blood pressure. Understanding this can also help explain something that some folks may experience: blood pressure that's high when they wake up. A late night snack, even something as innocent as a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts, can keep insulin levels elevated throughout the night, which signals the kidneys to hold on to sodium while you sleep. And when you wake up, your pressure is elevated before the day has even started. So what's the common thread in all this? It's not the quality of what you're eating. It's the frequency. Eating or drinking things that stimulate insulin often enough throughout the day and not letting insulin drop back down to its baseline. That's the pattern that keeps blood pressure elevated even in people who are otherwise doing everything right. The solution here isn't extreme. I'm not talking about strict fasting, going keto, or overhauling your entire life. What I'm talking about is something much simpler. It's creating windows of time during the day to allow insulin to fall back to baseline. If you're currently eating from 7 in the morning until 10 or 11 at night, try compressing that window. Maybe your first meal is at noon instead of first thing in the morning, or maybe you cut out the snacks between meals, or maybe dinner finishes by 7 p.m. and you don't eat again until the next day. The specifics will look different for everyone, but the goal is the same. Create a consistent stretch of time, ideally somewhere between 8 and 12 hours, where you're not triggering insulin secretion. During that window, insulin falls, and when insulin falls, the kidneys get the signal to stop holding on to sodium, blood volume normalizes, the sympathetic nervous system downregulates, and the inner lining of your blood vessels get a chance to produce nitric oxide, which allows them to relax. That's not one thing lowering your blood pressure. That's multiple systems resetting at the same time. Exercise helps here too, but just not for the reason most people think. Yes, it burns calories and improves cardiovascular fitness, but it also significantly improves your insulin sensitivity for several hours afterwards, meaning your body needs less insulin to manage blood sugar, which means less sodium retention and lower pressure over time. And sleep. Sleep is where a huge amount of hormonal resetting actually happens. Research has shown that just 4 nights of sleep deprivation can reduce insulin sensitivity by around 30% in otherwise healthy adults. So if you're chronically undersleeping, you're starting every single day with a higher baseline insulin resistance, which means higher insulin levels, more sodium retention, and higher blood pressure. Without taking care of your sleep, you cannot optimize your blood pressure. It's worth mentioning that blood pressure isn't just a number that we manage or a number that we look for. When it stays elevated over time, your heart has to work harder, and over years that leads to changes in the heart muscle that reduce its efficiency and increase your risk of heart failure. Your blood vessels take on more wear, which damages their lining and accelerates the development of blockages, and your kidneys, which are already doing the hard work of regulating pressure, take on more strain and are more vulnerable to long-term damage. But here's the bigger picture. The same hormonal pattern driving elevated blood pressure, chronic insulin elevation, an overactive nervous system, blood vessels that can't properly relax, is the same pattern underlying type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and a whole range of other chronic conditions. These aren't separate problems that just happen to show up together. They're different expressions of the same root cause. When you address that root cause, you're not just lowering a number on a cuff, you're reducing the risk across the board. Blood pressure doesn't stay elevated because you failed or because you haven't tried hard enough. It often stays high because the hormonal systems controlling it never get a chance to reset. The answer isn't more restriction or more willpower. It's giving your body the time it needs to do what it's actually designed to do. Create the window, let things reset, and watch what happens. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.